My name is Eleanor Hartwell. I am currently 45 years old and employed as a vice president at an investment bank in the bustling heart of Manhattan. My career trajectory has been steadily climbing for the past 25 years, and last year marked a significant milestone when I finally purchased the luxury apartment I had long desired. To outsiders looking in, I appear to be the very definition of success, respected by colleagues, financially secure, independent. Yet beneath this carefully constructed facade lies a truth I've spent decades trying to outrun. Whenever I'm around my family, I invariably feel like that rejected 12-year-old girl all over again. This feeling is particularly acute under the scrutinizing gaze of my mother, Carol. The memory still stings, sharp and clear despite the passing years. When I was merely 12 years old, my parents underwent a tumultuous divorce. The cause was my father's affair with a woman who was, most painfully, my mother's closest friend. I can still hear my mother's hysterical tears and piercing screams the day the painful truth was revealed. In the days that followed, she secluded herself in her room, barely touching any food, emerging only as a hollow-eyed stranger who could barely look at me. "You look just like your father," she would say, her voice always carrying that unmistakable edge of bitterness. The same nose, the same eyebrows, even that laugh. Each comparison felt like a small knife twisting in my chest. Even as a child, I was acutely aware of the subtle pain that dwelled in her eyes whenever she looked at me. I became the living reminder of my father's betrayal, and no accomplishment or act of kindness on my part could ever erase that fundamental fact. Following the divorce, my father, James, relocated to another state. In the first few years, we met once a month, but gradually we grew apart as his new life took precedence. Now our communication is limited to exchanging birthday cards and the occasional impersonal email. My mother remarried when I was 16 years old. My stepfather, Walter, has a son, Brian, from his previous marriage. He is 2 years older than me. After graduating from high school, Brian spent several years drifting between various part-time jobs, claiming he was finding himself. Eventually, he enrolled in college at the same time as I did. He attended a community college, while I was awarded a scholarship to the economics department at a prestigious state university. I worked multiple part-time jobs to support myself, often studying late into the night after exhausting shifts. The difference in our educational paths and work ethic only deepened the rift between us. After graduation, I began my career at a financial institution on Wall Street, while Ryan got a job at a local real estate company where he's remained for years without significant advancement. 5 years ago, aware that my mother and Walter were facing financial difficulties in their retirement, Ryan and I agreed to send them money. I sent $1,000 every month, while Ryan contributed $200. However, I soon discovered that Ryan had told my mother that all the money was coming from him. Despite my attempts to clarify the truth, my mother refused to believe me, insisting that Ryan would never lie about such a thing. "Eleanor, you've always been jealous of the special bond Ryan and I share," she once told me, her dismissal cutting deep. "He's such a thoughtful son to me." Initially, this deception didn't bother me. I was sending the money purely out of a sense of filial duty, not expecting praise or gratitude. But as months turned into years, this willful blindness began to create a festering wound in my heart. Whenever there was a financial emergency, my mother would call both Ryan and me with barely disguised desperation in her voice. "Eleanor, the car broke down. I can't afford the repair. Eleanor, unexpected medical bills have come up. Eleanor, the roof is leaking." Every time I sent money, which was always considerably more than Ryan's contribution, the subsequent phone call would inevitably end with her saying, "Ryan sent it all. Such a good boy, always thinking of his mother." Not everyone is blessed with such a caring child. The praise she lavished on him was in stark contrast to the clipped, businesslike tone she used with me. When I confronted Ryan about this ongoing deception, he merely shrugged, his face a mask of practiced innocence. "Mom prefers to think that way," he remarked with that infuriating half-smile. Why upset her with unnecessary details? Despite this, I continued to provide financial support quietly, continually reminding myself that I wasn't attempting to buy my mother's love. A commodity I'd long ago accepted was not for sale, at least not to me. Today may very well be one of the most significant days of my life. I can feel sweat beading on my hands as I grip the steering wheel, the leather warm beneath my fingers. The expensive bottle of wine in the back seat shifts slightly each time I stop at a traffic light, the soft clink echoing the irregular beating of my heart. Only 10 more minutes until I reach my mother's house located in the suburbs of New York. I inhale deeply, preparing myself mentally for what lies ahead. There is a family gathering today, the first I've attended in 3 years. Distant relatives will be there for this once a year event, many of whom I haven't seen since Walter's 60th birthday celebration. The unpleasant memories of that day come flooding back with startling clarity. I had been sharing news about a major project I'd successfully led in Manhattan, allowing myself a rare moment of professional pride in front of my family. My mother interrupted me mid-sentence, her voice carrying across the room. Eleanor, you are always talking about yourself. Have you ever thought about how Ryan would feel hearing about your so-called successes? When I fell silent, Walter added with a dismissive wave of his hand, "She's been like that since she was a child. Only thinks of herself." The room had gone quiet, every pair of eyes fixed on me. I felt the familiar sting of humiliation burning my cheeks as I sat isolated in a room full of people. Afterwards, Ryan consoled our mother, ostentatiously patting her hand. "Don't worry about it, Mom," he said, as if I had been the one who had caused her distress rather than the other way around. When I arrive at my mother's house, several cars are already parked along the curb. I pull my Mercedes to the far end of the street and turn off the engine, sitting for a moment in the quiet sanctuary of my car. I reach for the wine bottle, a vintage Cabernet that costs more than most people spend on groceries in a week. A peace offering, though I know from experience it won't buy peace. I check my appearance in the rearview mirror. At 45, I've learned to present myself with careful precision. A tailored beige dress beneath a black cashmere cardigan, simple yet elegant attire that speaks of success without shouting it. My straight bob, meticulously styled this morning, is slightly disheveled by the wind. I smooth it down with trembling fingers, annoyed at my own nervousness. After 25 years of building a career where I regularly negotiate million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, why does this house still reduce me to a bundle of raw nerves? "You're not that girl anymore," I whisper to my reflection. "You're Eleanor Hartwell, vice president at Morgan Stanley. You've earned your place." Taking another deep breath, I step out of the car and walk toward the entrance of the house, which is already resonating with the lively chatter of relatives. As I push open the front door, I'm greeted by the sight of distant relatives mingling in the hallway. Children I barely recognize race past me, their laughter echoing off the walls. The living room buzzes with adult conversation, the familiar cadence of family gossip and updates. My mother appears in the hallway, wearing a navy dress I sent her last Christmas. Her face registers surprise, as if she hadn't actually expected me to show up. "Oh, Eleanor, you've come," she says, her voice containing that familiar note of surprise. She must have sent the invitation as a mere formality, assuming I would prioritize work over family as I've done so many times before, often by design rather than necessity. "Yes, I received the invitation from Walter," I reply with a gentle smile that feels stiff on my face. "I brought this," I continue, offering up the wine bottle. She takes it, her eyes scanning the label without recognition of its value. "Thank you," she says formally, as if accepting a gift from a distant acquaintance. Everyone's already gathered. Your name tag is on the table by the entrance. She turns and heads back to the kitchen before I can respond, leaving me standing alone in the hallway, clutching my purse. The reception is as lukewarm as I expected. I approach a small table near the entrance where small name tags are neatly arranged. I begin searching for mine, running my fingers over the carefully written names. When I find it, my heart plummets like an elevator with snapped cables. The tag reads Eleanor Hartwell, and beneath it, in smaller letters but unmistakably in my mother's handwriting, is the word parasite. I stare at it, momentarily frozen, unable to process what I'm seeing. Blood rushes in my ears, drowning out the surrounding conversation. Then a voice comes from behind me. "Hey, Eleanor." Turning around, I see Ryan standing there, looking every bit the middle-aged man who has never quite grown up. He wears his usual safe outfit, a light blue shirt paired with khaki chinos, hair carefully arranged to hide his receding hairline. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. It's been a while, I manage to say, my voice steadier than I feel. How are you? Managing in the real estate market these days. The real estate market is tough, but I'm getting by, he replies with the practiced ease of someone used to glossing over details. His eyes flick down to my hands, and a flicker of something, guilt? Concern? Crosses his face. You found your name tag. I hold up the small card between two fingers. Is this some sort of humor for mom? I ask, keeping my emotions tightly leashed, though inside I feel a volcano of hurt and anger threatening to erupt. Ryan just shrugs, a gesture he's perfected over the years to avoid responsibility. She's been a bit sharp lately, especially when she drinks, he says, as if that explains everything. As if labeling your daughter a parasite is merely a symptom of having one too many glasses of sherry. I see. I respond quietly, staring at the name tag again. All the alienation I've felt since childhood comes rushing back in a tidal wave of painful memories. Proudly showing off my straight A report card only to be met with a dismissive, well, that's to be expected from James' daughter. When I received a full scholarship for college, my mother only said, "Good, it won't cost anything then." When I shared news of my first major promotion, she changed the subject to, "Ryan will be a manager soon too." I had never heard her say, "I'm proud of you." Not once in 45 years. I take a deep breath and feel something shift within me, like tectonic plates realigning after years of pressure. Today would be a turning point. Enough is enough. The decades of emotional abuse, the years of financial exploitation, the countless moments of favoritism shown to Ryan. All of it stops today. Are you okay? Ryan asks, a note of concern in his voice that seems almost genuine. Yes, I'm fine. I smile, tucking the name tag into my purse rather than pinning it to my dress. Let's go to the living room. I want to greet everyone. About 20 relatives have already gathered in this spacious living room. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Some I haven't seen in years. I greet each one politely, engaging in the expected small talk with practiced ease. Eleanor, you've grown into such an accomplished woman. I heard you're a vice president now. Isn't that impressive? When are you getting married? You're not getting any younger, says Aunt Miriam, her questions cutting a little too close to the bone. The typical conversations at a family gathering, intrusive, judgmental, wrapped in a thin veneer of concern. I respond with a smile that doesn't reach my eyes, deflecting questions about my personal life with vague references to being married to my career. When it's time to eat, everyone gathers at the long dining table. While serving food, my mother begins to talk about Ryan's recent achievements, her face animated in a way it never is when she speaks about me. Ryan sold the biggest property in town last month, she announces to the table at large, pride evident in every syllable. The commission was incredible, wasn't it, dear? Ryan smiles modestly, playing his role to perfection. Well, it was average, he demurs. Always so humble. My mother beams, reaching out to pat his hand affectionately. He also started going to the gym last month. It's great he's taking care of his health at his age. I continue eating silently, cutting my roast beef into precise squares. The days of hungering for my mother's approval were long behind me. At least that's what I kept telling myself, even as I felt the familiar ache of exclusion. How about Eleanor? Aunt Courtney asks, perhaps sensing my discomfort. Her kind eyes meet mine across the table. How's life in Manhattan? The investment banking world must be exciting. Before I can respond, my mother interjects, her voice carrying a hint of disapproval. She always seems so busy. She hardly picks up the phone when I call, she comments, carefully positioning herself as the neglected mother. I straighten my shoulders slightly. Working as an investment bank vice president is indeed demanding, I explain, keeping my voice level. But it's fulfilling. Last month, I led a major merger project to success and received a substantial bonus. I don't mention the fact that my bonus alone could pay off their mortgage. You've become quite wealthy, then, my mother remarks, setting her wine glass on the table with a little too much force. But you don't have time to care for your family, do you? Some things are more important than money, Eleanor. A moment of uncomfortable silence follows at the table. I feel the familiar tightness in my chest, the sensation of being unfairly judged. That's not exactly, I begin, but my mother suddenly stands up. Oh, I forgot, she exclaims with theatrical urgency. I need to serve the dessert, she says, disappearing into the kitchen before I can finish my thought. Ryan sends me a look of pity across the table, which I find hypocritical considering his role in perpetuating the family dynamic. He's complicit too, having enjoyed the benefits of being the favored child for decades. As the meal concludes and it's time for dessert and coffee, Walter stands up, wine glass in hand. His face flushed from alcohol, he clears his throat with self-important gravity. I'm delighted that everyone could gather here today, especially those who traveled from afar. He begins his formal speech, swaying slightly. He speaks about the importance of family ties and proudly introduces Ryan's recent successes in real estate, conveniently omitting any mention of the financial support they've received from me for years. My name is not mentioned even once, despite my contributions to keeping their household afloat. As everyone claps politely after his speech, I slowly stand up, feeling my heart pounding against my ribs. The moment has arrived. 5 years of monthly payments, decades of emotional neglect, a lifetime of being compared unfavorably to my father. All of it has led to this moment. May I say a few words? I ask, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. My mother looks surprised, perhaps even alarmed. It was rare for me to speak publicly at family gatherings, rarer still for me to draw attention to myself after years of being conditioned to remain in the background. Of course, Walter says, returning to his seat with a slight look of confusion. The room falls quiet, all eyes turning toward me. I lift my wine glass and take a deep breath, centering myself. Thank you all for coming today. It's wonderful to see faces I haven't seen in a long while. I begin, my professional speaking skills coming to my aid. I raise my glass slightly in acknowledgement. The last time I attended a family gathering was 3 years ago. Since then, much has changed. I've been promoted to vice president, purchased my dream apartment, and for the first time in my life, I truly feel proud of what I've accomplished. People around the table listen quietly. My mother grips her coffee cup with white knuckles, her expression stern and wary. She senses something has shifted, though she can't yet identify what. But there is one thing that hasn't changed. I continue, my voice gaining strength. It's the discomfort I feel every time I come to this house. The air in the room grows thick with tension, the silence almost palpable. Today, when I found my name tag at the entrance table, it was labeled parasite. I say, taking the name tag out of my purse and placing it on the table where everyone can see it. A few people lean in, and small gasps of surprise ripple through the room. Aunt Courtney's hand flies to her mouth in shock. At first, I was hurt, I admit. But now I see this as a turning point in my life. I speak slowly, deliberately, lifting my glass. Today, I would like to propose a toast to what may be our last reunion. The room falls into complete silence. Ryan's eyes are wide with alarm. My mother has gone pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. Walter shifts uncomfortably in his chair. All these years, I've done many things in a bid to be acknowledged as part of this family. Sending $1,000 a month for the past 5 years was one of those things. I continue, my voice clear and unwavering. What are you talking about? My mother interrupts, her voice sharp with defensiveness. Ryan has. No, Mom, I say quietly but firmly. Ryan sends $200 a month. The remaining $1,000 has been from me for the past 5 years. I look directly into her eyes, no longer willing to be dismissed or diminished. I have the receipts to prove it. Whispers of astonishment spread among the relatives. Ryan stares at the floor, unable to meet anyone's gaze. My revelation has stripped away his carefully constructed facade. But that's ending now, I continue, feeling a strange lightness spreading through me. The last payment I made last month was the final one. And that's not all. I pause, allowing the gravity of my words to sink in. I've also saved all the call records and remittance histories, because somewhere inside, I knew a day would come when they'd be needed. My mother and Walter exchanged nervous glances. For the first time, fear appears on Walter's face. Not concern for our relationship, but fear for himself. I met with a tax auditor yesterday, I explained, watching Walter's face drain of color. It seems there are many suspicious aspects concerning Walter's tax returns over the past 5 years. What are you saying? Walter stands up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. That can't be possible. It is possible, Walter, I reply calmly. The IRS is very interested to learn that you've been declaring my monthly payments as business consulting fees to reduce your taxes. I maintain eye contact with him, no longer intimidated by his attempts to dominate the room. That's fraud. My mother looks at Walter with genuine confusion. What is she talking about? The question hangs in the air between them. Walter's face turns an alarming shade of red. Sandra, I'll explain later, he says dismissively, trying to regain control of the situation. Explain to me now. My mother's voice trembles with a rare display of backbone. Is what Eleanor is saying true? The room falls silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Walter's guilty expression tells everyone everything they need to know. It's a joke, right? My mother asks, her voice small and uncertain. She looks at me with pleading eyes, as if willing me to say, this is all an elaborate prank. A joke? I chuckle softly, without humor. About as funny as being called a parasite. I down my glass in one go, the expensive wine tasteless to me now. And Ryan, I turn to my stepbrother, maintaining my composure. The authorities are also investigating your activities at the real estate company, particularly the suspicions of providing false information to elderly investors. Ryan's face drains of all color, the reality of his situation finally dawning on him. Eleanor, what have you done? His voice is barely above a whisper, panic evident in his eyes. I've only told the truth, I state calmly. I have all the evidence about the funds you swindled from the elderly last year. I accidentally discovered a few months ago that my client's grandmother had invested a significant amount in your company and lost her life savings. Upon investigating, I found several other victims, all elderly people who trusted you with their retirement funds. I looked directly into his eyes, no longer the intimidated stepsister. Using my financial industry knowledge, I meticulously gathered details of your real estate transactions, collecting evidence of your false investor presentations and document forgery. The pattern was clear. You specifically targeted vulnerable seniors. Ryan tries to stand in protest, but I raise my hand to stop him. His facade of confidence crumbles before everyone's eyes. That's enough, I say with quiet authority. All the evidence has already been submitted to the authorities. You will be hearing from them within a few days. I pick up my purse and stand up, straightening my dress. The room remains eerily silent, every face a mixture of shock and disbelief. The meal was delicious. Goodbye, I say simply. Then, without looking back, I leave the dining room, walking through the house where I never truly belonged. As I exit through the front door into the crisp afternoon air, I feel a strange lightness in my steps. It's as if I've been freed from a burden I've carried for 25 years, the weight of trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it. I get into my car, start the engine, and begin to drive back toward Manhattan, toward the life I've built for myself. For the first time in years, I feel completely at peace with who I am. A few days later, the expected developments begin to unfold. The local news reports a major fraud scandal at a prominent real estate company. Ryan's name and photo are displayed prominently, revealing that he had systematically targeted elderly clients in investment scams spanning several years. The reports detail how his fraud was meticulously planned, involving inflated real estate values, falsified return projections, and forged documents, all designed to prey on the vulnerability and trust of senior citizens. A week later, the tax audit against my mother and Walter intensifies. An investigation reveals they had been declaring my financial support as business income, avoiding significant taxes while also recording various fictitious business expenses. The authorities are taking the case very seriously. My phone is flooded with furious messages. From Ryan, an email filled with indignation. How could you do this to family? Why did you betray me? From my mother, accusations that I have ruined their lives and destroyed the family. From Walter especially, a message dripping with self-righteousness and entitlement. Eleanor, what were you thinking? As a daughter, it's your duty to support the family financially. Do you understand what I've done for you? I let you live under my roof, provided meals, and ensured you never had to worry about tuition. I've never done anything wrong to you. Yet why involve me because of your grudge against your mother? Reporting us to the tax authorities is a betrayal to the family. Just because your real father abandoned you, it's wrong to take that anger out on me. Remember, whatever happens now is your responsibility. I read each message once, then delete them all. There is nothing left to say. 3 months later, the legal proceedings reach their conclusion. Walter receives a substantial fine and a 3-year suspended sentence for tax evasion. My mother is acquitted on the grounds that she was unaware of the financial improprieties, but their house is seized to satisfy the tax debt, and their relationship lies in tatters. Their reputation in the community, once so important to them, has crumbled, and former friends now avoid them at social gatherings. I observe these developments from a distance, neither gloating nor intervening. This isn't about revenge. It's about justice and finally breaking free from patterns of abuse and exploitation that have defined our relationship for decades. There's a certain sadness in watching the collapse of what could have been a loving family, but I feel no guilt. Each person is facing the natural consequences of their own choices. A year after Ryan's trial begins, I receive an unexpected request from him for a visit. He's serving a 6-year sentence for his elaborate scheme to defraud elderly investors. Initially, I intend to refuse. What meaning could there be in having a conversation with him now? But something holds me back from sending an immediate rejection. After much reflection, I decide to visit him in prison. I want a definitive conclusion to this chapter of my life. I want to look him in the eye and understand why he and my mother had hurt me for so long. Perhaps most importantly, I want to prove to myself that they no longer have any power over me. The prison visiting room is stark and institutional, a far cry from the comfortable suburban life Ryan had once enjoyed. He appears in his prisoner's uniform looking gaunt, the confident expression he once wore replaced by a haunted weariness. The sight of him triggers not satisfaction but a complicated mixture of pity and resolute detachment. "Thanks for coming," he says, his voice subdued. "What do you want?" I ask directly, keeping my emotions in check. "I wanted to apologize," he begins, but his expression quickly shifts from contrition to resentment. "But actually, this is all your fault, isn't it? Excuse me?" I'm taken aback by this sudden reversal. "If you hadn't been in such a prestigious finance job, I wouldn't have committed those frauds." He frowns, his eyes narrow with blame. "Seeing you always being the top student and praised by everyone at your fancy bank, I wanted to be acknowledged too. I needed to prove I was just as successful." I stare at him in disbelief. "You're blaming me for your decision to become a criminal? You deliberately targeted elderly people who trusted you. Why did you commit fraud when you weren't short on money?" I ask, genuinely wanting to understand the psychology behind his actions. "Because it was easy," he shrugs with disturbing candor. "And Mom always protected me. She always stood by my side no matter what I did wrong. I knew I could get away with it." "So you defrauded elderly people out of their life savings because of that?" I press, still struggling to comprehend such callousness. "They all have insurance," he tries to justify, though his argument is paper thin. "And they're going to die soon anyway, so young people like me can make better use of that money," he adds with a level of moral bankruptcy that leaves me speechless. I sit in stunned silence, absorbing the depth of his narcissism. This was my stepbrother. This was the person my mother had consistently favored and protected, the one she'd held up as superior to me in every way. In this moment, I see with perfect clarity how distorted our family dynamic has always been. "Eleanor, to be honest, if you hadn't reported this, I would still be free," he says resentfully. "You betrayed me." "Betrayal?" I find myself raising my voice slightly. "What about when you told Mom that all the money was yours, denying my contributions year after year? What about when you consoled her at family gatherings as if I were the villain? What about the elderly people whose trust and savings you stole? That money thing was just a joke," he says with an insincere smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Mom believed it, that's all. It's not my fault she always liked me better." His casual dismissal of years of deception strikes me as the final confirmation of his character. "You're the lowest," I say quietly, standing up to signal the end of our conversation. Hey, Eleanor. He suddenly changes his tone, leaning forward with an ingratiating smile. Could you lend me some money? I need it for certain privileges here, and I want to consult a better lawyer too. I stare at him, momentarily speechless at his audacity. Even now, after everything, he still sees me as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. You still don't understand, do you? I say quietly, gathering my purse. Let's end this. Goodbye, Ryan. His face contorts with desperation. Eleanor, wait. I really need it. Just a few $100s. I'm family. I leave the prison with his pleas fading behind me, feeling not triumph but a profound sadness for the wasteland that was our family. Yet beneath that sadness is the certainty that I've made the right decision. 6 months after visiting Ryan, the doorbell at my Manhattan apartment rings unexpectedly on a Sunday afternoon. When I open the door, I'm confronted with a sight I never thought I'd see. My mother, standing in my hallway, looking utterly defeated. Gone is the proud, critical woman I've known all my life. Her clothes are cheap and worn, her once immaculate hair unkempt, deep bags shadowing her eyes. She clutches a shabby bag in her hand. Eleanor, she says, her voice cracking with emotion. Can we talk? I hesitate for a long moment, my hand still on the doorknob, but eventually step aside to let her in. In my tastefully decorated living room, a space that reflects the success she's never acknowledged, she sits down awkwardly, hands trembling as she takes a faded photograph from her bag. It was a picture of you when you were young, she says, her voice small. We've lost everything. Our home, our savings, our friends. I'm sorry to hear that. I respond, my tone neutral, but not cruel. I've had months to process my feelings, to reach a place where I can be present without being vulnerable to her manipulation. I need help, she admits, staring down at her worn hands. I have nowhere else to go. I've separated from Walter. He's moved to another state. She looks up at me with desperate eyes. Could you possibly allow me to stay here for a short while? Just until I can find a job and get back on my feet. I might also need some financial assistance during this time. I study her face intently, seeing for the first time not the critical mother who could never love me, but just a tired, middle-aged woman who has lost everything, partly through her own choices and partly through trusting the wrong people. Her clothes are unremarkable, her nails bitten down to the quick. A heavy silence hangs between us before I finally break it. I need to ask you one thing, I say quietly. Did you ever genuinely love me? My mother looks surprised by the question, her eyes widening. Then tears begin to well up and spill down her cheeks. I thought I did, she whispers. But you looked so much like your father. Every time I saw you, it reminded me of his betrayal. She wipes at her tears with a tissue. And Ryan was always such a sensitive child. You were strong. I thought you didn't need me as much. The irony of her words isn't lost on me. How often I had longed for her approval, her affection, only to be told I was too strong to need it. Why are you asking me for help now? I ask quietly. You're my last hope, she replies simply. And you ask for help after calling me a parasite? I can't keep the hurt from my voice. She begins to sob, her shoulders shaking. I'm your mother. Blood alone doesn't make a family, I say, my voice soft but firm. I stand up and move toward the door, signaling that our conversation is ending. I won't do to you what you did to me. I won't call you names or try to hurt you deliberately. I take a deep breath, centering myself. But I won't help you either, not in the way you're asking. You need to figure this out yourself. My mother stares at me, her face a mask of incomprehension. Even now, she can't understand why I won't simply capitulate to her needs. She's never been able to see me as a person separate from her expectations. I'll give you some resources, I continue, walking to my desk where I write down the contact information for several social services and shelters. I also take $300 from my wallet, enough to help but not enable. I place both on the coffee table between us. These organizations can help you get back on your feet. The money should help with immediate expenses. She looks at the paper and cash as if they're foreign objects. But Eleanor, I'm your mother, she repeats, as if this statement alone should override everything else. Goodbye, Mom, I say gently, opening the door. She seems about to say something more, but the finality in my expression stops her. She slowly gathers her bag, takes the money and information, and walks to the door. As she passes me, I say one last thing. I hope you find peace. And I hope you learn to value yourself beyond your relationships with men or children. Take care of yourself. I close the door quietly behind her. Looking through the window, I observe her remain standing there momentarily before she begins to walk away slowly, without purpose or direction. I feel no triumph, no vindication, just a peaceful clarity, as if I've finally woken from a long, troubled dream into a clear morning. 5 years later, 5 years have passed since that day. My life has changed in many ways, all for the better. I was promoted to executive vice president at the bank, built new, genuine friendships with people who value me for who I am, and realized a long-held dream by founding a nonprofit organization that supports victims of economic abuse. I have cut off all contact with my mother, stepfather, and Ryan. Occasionally, through mutual acquaintances, I hear about their situations. My mother is living alone in a small apartment, having found work as a receptionist. Walter apparently has a low-paying job in another state and has remarried. Ryan is still serving his prison sentence. One autumn morning, a letter arrives at my office. I recognize the handwriting immediately, my mother's. My hands tremble slightly as I open it, surprised at my own reaction after all this time. Inside there is a brief message written in hurried handwriting. Eleanor, I will never forget how you destroyed our family. I raised you as your mother, and you are a heartless person with no gratitude. Ryan was always much kinder than you. Imagine my misfortune having a cold-blooded daughter like you. Your father was the same. He betrayed me and then left. You are just like him. You ruined my life and felt nothing. May God judge you. Carol. I read the letter twice, then quietly drop it into the trash can beside my desk. There was a time when these words would have devastated me, reopening old wounds and sending me into a spiral of self-doubt. Now, I feel only a fleeting sadness, not for myself, but for a woman who still cannot see beyond her own pain to recognize the damage she has caused. Outside my office window, Manhattan glitters in the morning sun. My calendar is full of meetings related to my nonprofit's latest initiative to provide financial literacy training to women leaving abusive relationships. My assistant knocks gently on the door, reminding me that the board meeting will begin in 5 minutes. I smile and gather my materials. Now freed from the past curses, there is no need for me to look back. This is my new life, stronger, more purposeful, and infinitely more peaceful. A life built not on the approval of others, but on my own values and choices. A life born from past pain, certainly, but no longer defined by it. As I walk to the conference room, I catch my reflection in the glass wall, a confident woman of 50, standing tall, eyes clear and focused on the future. You did it, Eleanor, I whisper to myself. You found your way home.